Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome to a very long-awaited video. It was a little over a year ago when I stumbled upon the TikTok account of someone who describes herself as a doormat mom, which is a mother who was walked all over by her kids, and how she had finally had enough of being a doormat mom. And so her account is entirely revolved around talking about that, and specifically estrangement between parents and their adult children, because she herself has an estranged daughter. So I went through her entire TikTok account and we talked about all of those. I've come back to it a couple of times, and I also joined her Facebook group, which is a group of 7,500 parents who have estranged adult children who just come together and play the victim together. They post every single day complaining about their children and how they, as the parents, are the real victims in the estrangement that has taken place, and it is unfair that their feelings are never considered. But there is one place of hers that I did not venture, and that was into her book, because of course she wrote a book, because why wouldn't she write a book? And this book is titled Doormat Mom No More: When Good Parents Finally Say Enough to Their Ungrateful Adult Kids, which is an absolute mouthful of a title, and also her author name is Doormat Mom, so I am just going to be referring to her as Doormat Mom throughout the entirety of this video because I don't think she deserves a name. So she is just Doormat Mom from here on out. And it was about midway through last year when I made a video about her and her Facebook group. And I said that if that video got 10,000 likes, I would get the book and I would dive into that and I would talk about that. If this video gets 10k likes, I will read that and we can sit and have a talk about this horrible, horrifying book. And it very quickly hit 10k likes and then more, and people kept asking me to do it. And I am a woman of the people, so I did indeed get the book and read the book and go through it, analyze it, write a bunch of notes, etc., etc. And it was an absolute nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. It was such a painstakingly long process to do. She said so much that made me feel so many emotions and so much rage that whilst reading the book, I ended up writing over 45 pages worth of notes about the book in direct response to it. And I have spent the last 8 months having this as sort of like a side project to everything else I do, going through all of the notes that I took, rearranging it, building it, making it into something that would work for a video. However, as we all know, I love to yap. I cannot stop myself. I just talk and talk forever. And so I did not manage to edit this down into something that would be appropriate for a video. So this is going to be 3 parts. It is the only way I could make it work without this being unnecessarily absurdly long. So please do subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the following 2 parts. I have spent a lot of time and put like literally everything I have into this project, and I am so excited to finally actually be making it and sharing it with you all. And so I would really appreciate if you do engage with this video, like, comment, please do subscribe if you aren't already. Do not forget to turn on the notifications bell. I have been told that my videos are not showing up in a lot of people's feeds, even if they are subscribers. So click the bell so that you don't miss the next 2 episodes. I really do hope that you enjoy these videos. I have been teasing them for such a long time. And I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting for so long. I also want to let you know that I have the original incredibly long document available on Patreon, along with multiple other documents that I made throughout this planning process. So it has kind of every step of the way, as well as like cuts and things that didn't make it, and like draft versions and everything. That is available on Patreon at patreon.com/savvycat. If you want access to all of this stuff without actually being a member, it is currently available for purchase as a collection. And if you use the code @LONGLAST, all caps, you'll get 20% off. Thank you, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy. Now that that is all out of the way, let's finally dive into the nightmare that is this book.
And a grateful little bastard.
To start with, we have to answer the question, who is Doormat Mom? She has always been vague in her social media posting in order to prompt you to buy her book, and because it's easier to maintain her victim facade if she is withholding a lot of the details, obviously. And to be honest, she isn't really that transparent in the book either, which I'm sure is not really that surprising to anyone. But we do at least get a bit more of the story. We do see, at least from her perspective, what went wrong and, you know, the whole blow up of the whole thing. Even if it is incredibly biased from her side, I don't think that actually does her any favors. So we're gonna dive into that together. Let's see what we unravel. Doormat Mom is a conservative Christian woman, which will come as a shock to none of us. I feel like that was a very valid assumption for everyone to have made. Her husband died when her 4 children were quite young, so she has been a single mother for the large majority of her children's lives. She claimed she tried her best to raise competent and grateful adults, and that for the most part, that stuck. 3 of her children turned out exactly the way she wanted them to. However, her youngest daughter did not live up to her expectations. The youngest daughter, I will just be referring to her as daughter, went to Australia after uni to do some traveling. She was not intending to stay long term. She was just traveling around, like, seeing more of the world, as many of us enjoy doing. But she met a man while she was there and decided to stay. They ended up getting engaged and started planning a wedding. And Doormat Mom was initially taken aback by this. She was not expecting this to happen, but she claims, you know, she was okay with it. She would like accept it, and like if that's what was going to make her happy, that's fine. And so she was there long distance helping daughter plan the wedding that was going to happen, and also offered to plan 2 alternate ceremonies in the US for her American family, which ultimately it is this that led to the big event that led to the cut of contact between them. But we will get into that shortly. An assumption I think all of us safely made prior to any new context being brought to the table is that she had some incredibly high standards of her children. She has mentioned in many TikToks some of those expectations she has, repeatedly mentioning how her kids owe her eternal gratitude for just being a parent.
The biggest cop-out in the world that I hear from the estranged adult-child community on this platform is that they don't owe their parents anything. Yes, I'm going to say it. Yes, you do. You absolutely do. You owe your parents for bringing you into this world and keeping you alive. You owe them for the love they gave you, the caring they showed you, and the protection that they afforded you.
And luckily for us, in this book, she dives well into that pool of expectations and claims that they were reasonable and she wasn't asking for much, and believes that we, the readers, will take her side because she was being incredibly reasonable. And since she laid them out so clearly, it makes my job of tearing it apart very easy. So let's go through one by one how absolutely ludicrous and frustratingly upsetting the rules and expectations she had for her children were.
And a grateful little bastard.
She said, "I had always put my children first, and all I ever asked for in return was for them to meet me halfway, lend a hand when asked, work to become the legacy of which their father would be proud, respect me, don't lie, show an appropriate amount of gratitude, stay out of trouble, don't abandon me in my old age, and never ever put me in a nursing home. That's it. If they came out loving me, and I assumed they would, my life would be complete." Firstly, I need to say that "that's it" is such a laughable thing to say after laying out such a hefty list. That was not only a lot of things that was said, but also some very big, weighty expectations as well. Let's focus on the bigger ones here that require a little bit more of a conversation, because there is no flexibility in what these rules are. And that is, one, show an appropriate amount of gratitude. For what? What do they have to show you gratitude for? For being a parent? Because you provide for, love, and prioritize them? Because that's what being a parent is. Yes, it's nice for people to be grateful and show their appreciation, but is your level of expectation for that matched to what you have been giving them? Your kids do not have to be grateful to you for just being a parent, for feeding them, housing them, clothing them, providing for them, etc. Like, they do not owe you gratitude for that, because that is quite literally the bare minimum requirements of you as a parent. They are unable to provide for themselves. That is your job. That is your role. They don't owe you gratitude for keeping them alive. Nor do they owe you gratitude for things such as taking them to the doctor, or taking time off work when they are sick, or being a shoulder to cry on and someone to confide in. Like, they do not owe you gratitude for those things, because you signed up to do those things when you decided to become a parent. They are bare minimum expectations. That's just what you do. What do you actually want from them? Thanks, Mom, for not letting me starve? You don't think that's a weird thing to be asking for gratitude for? It's also important to note here that adulthood and life experience really helps with gratitude, because it puts everything into perspective. Growing up, you think that your upbringing and your home experiences are the same as everyone else's, because it's the only thing you have for context. It's the only thing that you know. So you just assume that everyone else goes through the same shit, right? You don't know that anyone else is living differently until you start talking to more people and you start seeing other people's families and learning more about them and their experiences and their lives. And obviously, the older you get, the more of that you get. Where you live in your community makes a difference. Like, if you're homeschooled versus going to public school versus going to Catholic school, like, you are going to be learning different things about different types of people depending on your environment as well. And so the older you get, the more people you interact with, the more context you get, right? That's why conservative parents don't like when their kids go to university. When you yourself are an adult as well, you have so much more context to reflect on. And you also have more of an ability to like empathize with your parent and what they were going through and the situation and everything, right? But as a kid, you don't have that context, or you are like just learning about it, right? Like, I was never truly grateful growing up for my upbringing, and things that people now tell me that, you know, I should be grateful for. That was great that I like, you know, had such incredible things that were given to me and that I experienced that so many people don't have. But I would never think to be grateful for it, because it was just so normal to me. And it's just what childhood and like parents and things like that's just what that is to me. I didn't think to be grateful for it because it's just life, right? But at the same time, that also applies to the bad things too, right? Like, it also means the things that were happening that were like traumatizing me, I also thought other people were experiencing. So this works both ways. Like, you want them to be grateful for the good things that you did for them, but you also don't want them to acknowledge the bad things that happened too. You can't you can't want both of those things. If they're gonna be grateful for the good things, they're also gonna be upset about the bad things. Growing up, they don't think to be grateful, but they also don't think to be angry. They just view their lives as what it is. They view their mother as what you are. Like, mother to them means whatever you have made it mean. 2, work to become the legacy of which their father would be proud. It is astounding to me how many parents do not realize the weight of this expectation. The fact that daughter, someone who didn't even know her father long enough to hold any memories of him, is expected to be a legacy of him. And I'm supposed to think that that is a reasonable expectation. It is so incredibly cruel to give authority to their dead father and then hold that above their head to guilt trip them and shame them. Not to mention the fact that what your husband would think or do is based entirely off of your assumptions. You actually have no way of knowing how he would act or what he would say because he's not there and he has never been there for them because he died when they were young. Is that sad? Yes, but it is true. He has no power anymore. And it's not fair on anyone for you to like give him power when he's not around to like express that or share what he actually would think or believe. And what he would think or believe, frankly, doesn't even fucking matter because he's not there. It doesn't matter. You are there. You are the one who is setting the expectations. You are the one who they rely on. You are the one who needs to be giving them what they need. Their father does not play any part in this because he's not there. I understand that sometimes the sentiment of like, your father would be proud of you, sometimes people appreciate that, and that's fine. Saying your father would be disappointed in you, however, fucked up, because that doesn't actually matter, and that's cruel to use that against them. It is also unbelievably unfair to make your kids believe that their worth is dependent on your pride and if they meet your expectations, and even more so to make them believe that it is dependent on the pride of a man who they don't even know and who isn't around to express that himself. Don't abandon me in my old age and never ever put me in a nursing home. It is not fair for you to tell your kids that they have to make sacrifices for you in order for you to love them. You are implying that they exist for the sole purpose of looking after you. You had kids so that you could be cared for, not because you wanted to give love, not because you had love to give and because you wanted to raise humans into adults and like watch how incredible it is and be a part of that like incredible thing, but because you wanted to pay off later. It is okay to want your kids to look after you in your old age. It is okay to desire that. It is not okay to require that. Right? It is fine for you to want things. It is totally reasonable for you to be like old and frail and be like, I wish that my kid was here. That's fair enough. Not fair of you to be like, I raised you, so now you have to come look after me, you ungrateful little brat. You know, there's a bit of a difference. It's not fair to expect your kids to sacrifice their lives to look after you, right? Like, this is the thing, is that she and all these parents from her estranged parent group, they think that because they sacrificed their lives and their time for their children, it means that their children owe them that in return. But here's the thing. You chose to be a parent. You chose to have kids. That means you chose to make those sacrifices. You chose to like dedicate your time and your love and affection into raising humans. You made that choice. Your kids did not choose to be born. They did not choose to have you as a mother. They did not choose to have a mother at all. They didn't choose to exist. You made that decision. And so now they get to choose whether they make or don't make those sacrifices. Yes, you made them, but you made that choice. Now they get to make that choice. I had this weird epiphany recently about parenthood, and I'm not entirely sure where it came from. Maybe it's because I recently turned 26. Maybe it's because I went home and every time I talked to my friends, they were like, do you think you're gonna have kids one day? And it just like put it in my mind. But I had this moment a few months back now where I kind of just like stood there and I had this weird moment of being like, I get it. I understand parenthood, of the fact that it is just like entirely about love, right? It is about love, but it's not about getting love. It is about giving love. It is about having so much love to give and having somewhere, someone to pour it into. It is about giving your time and your love to a tiny human and watching them grow, watching them receive that love and learn how to love themselves too, right? It's about being there for someone and guiding them through life. It's watching someone grow. It is holding their hand. It is guiding them. It is seeing your love and kindness in them and watching that love and kindness spread and knowing that, you know, the world is a little better for having a little bit more love in it. That's what it's about. It is about love. It is not about them loving you or doing anything for you. What they do for you, the payoff you get for being a parent is getting to be a part of that experience. The payoff for being a parent is watching this human that you created, that you nourished, that you dedicated so much time and love to. It's watching them grow and go out into the world and be a good person. That is the payoff. That's it. There is no more. They do not owe you anything else. You can't expect them to give you more because you haven't done any more. That's the whole thing it's happened. Right? If you want to continue on and having a good relationship, you have to build a good relationship and have a relationship that exists further than that.
And a grateful little bastard.
Now that we know the basics of their family and the expectations that are put upon her children, let's talk about the event that led to the estrangement, because I'm sure you are all so curious because, as I said, she's not said this anywhere. It's nowhere. She lies about it. I will say, she lies about it. She never says what the event is. She doesn't give any information, but she does lie. And you're about to find out why she lies. Okay. I do not know what I was expecting the final straw to be, because as I said, she does not say it anywhere. But I'm sure that you were all certain, as I was certain, that it was daughter who initiated the estrangement. So you would not believe my shock when I found out that it was doormat mom who initiated the estrangement. It was doormat mom who sent the final text of being like, we're not going to talk anymore. She was the one who did that. And then went on to make an entire career around how hard it is when a child chooses to be estranged from you. She is the one who went no contact and then created an entire TikTok account, an entire Facebook group, and does several TV and magazine interviews claiming how hard it is to be a parent who experiences a child cutting contact.
My first guest, Laura, is a mother who says she was totally blindsided when her daughter cut her off.
But she's the one who cut contact. Astounding. Astounding. So let's talk about what happened and led doormat mom to finally putting her foot down and finally saying enough. During the planning of the wedding, daughter would communicate a lot with her mother to get opinions and feedback and just help with the planning process. And one of the things that doormat mom was helping with was picking the dress. And she shares a conversation that took place. Hold on to your hats for this, because I don't quite think you're prepared for the conversation that you are about to hear took place. All right. My youngest daughter sent me photos of a few wedding dresses that she chose to try on. I thought that the designs she opted for were a bit too revealing, thinking that her two brothers, as well as her fiancé's parents and brothers, would be in attendance on the day. Fucking what? What? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sharing this as an example of something she believes she was completely in the right for is astounding to me. It blows my mind that she does not even consider the fact that she said anything wrong here. She told her daughter that her brothers, her own brothers, would sexualize her at her wedding, but she said nothing wrong. You can't wear that dress because it's too revealing and your brothers will be there and your fiance's family. Inappropriate. This one sentiment gives such strong insight to the household and some of the other rules that must have existed within this family. And it tells me the exact type of adults you raised. You raised men who believe it is their right to objectify and sexualize women for being immodest in any way, including their sister. And you raised women who believe that what she wears decides whether or not men respect her, and also that her body is not entirely her own. You raised adults who believe that men have authority and power over women. And that also leads me to believe that the expectations you had on your children differed between your sons and your daughters. And I also cannot imagine that it was very fair and the treatment of them was very equal. Doormat Mom was like genuinely shocked that daughter was mad at her for this statement. Like, she truly just did not understand. She was like, she asked for my opinion and I gave it. I don't understand why she was mad at me. I didn't do anything wrong. Like, straight up, she could not fathom that she did anything wrong here. And instead of apologizing, because she didn't do anything wrong, obviously, so she refused to apologize, she complained about it being unfair and that responsibility should have been taken on both sides. And I just really, really want to know what on earth daughter needed to take responsibility for here. It's wild because the only thing here that she is asking her daughter to take responsibility for, because it's the literal only thing that happened, is her daughter expressing that she was upset with her. Doormat Mom says something incredibly inappropriate and upsetting. Daughter says, "Hey, I didn't like that you said that. That was not okay." Doormat Mom goes, "Well, I'm not apologizing because you just hurt my feelings by saying that I upset you. So I think you need to take responsibility for your words and actions." That's not how this fucking works. If someone asks for an apology because you've upset them, you give them an apology and you learn from it and you grow from it and you understand what you did wrong and why it upset them. That's what you're supposed to do. If you do this, you end up in a never-ending cycle of like, you upset me, please apologize. Well, you upset me by telling me I upset you, so you apologize. You upset me for telling me I upset you for telling you that you upset me, so now you apologize to me. Well, you know, it goes on and on and on and on forever. The thing that you should do is just listen when someone says that you have upset them, communicate and apologize and learn from it. Be an adult. Be her fucking mother. What are you doing? Stop being so immature. Oh my God. It's okay to admit you're wrong sometimes. It's okay to listen and take accountability, which is absolutely something that you needed to do here. You aren't the victim. You don't just get to blame everyone for literally everything. Listen. That's not the thing that ended the relationship, by the way. As I previously mentioned, the ceremony, the initial ceremony, is taking place in Australia, and Doormat Mom will be arranging 2 alternate ceremonies to take place in the States for the American family. And this led to a conversation in which Doormat Mom mentioned that she was looking forward to going to Australia and attending this ceremony. And this is where it all went down. The morning after this conversation, this phone call, daughter called her mom and said, "You know I love you, right?" And then expressed that she recently began realizing she needed to do a better job of caring for her mother. Doormat Mom was taken by surprise because finally daughter was maturing into the type of person that Doormat Mom had worked so hard to cultivate, which she then, of course, credited immediately to the young man she fell in love with, which ties so perfectly back into the point about misogyny, right? Like, obviously, of course, daughter can't do any of her own growth. She can't do any healing and growing on her own. Any character development that she has is obviously because of a man, not herself, not her own journey, not her own experiences. It is specifically because she has a man in her life now. It was during this conversation that daughter told her mother that she was not invited to the Australian ceremony. Doormat Mom did not provide any further context for why she wasn't invited to the ceremony. She didn't say there was any more to the conversation. She kind of just implied it was her daughter being like, "You aren't invited." Bye, which I I doubt is what happened. I have no idea why she wasn't invited. It doesn't really matter that much. I have seen speculations that doormat mom couldn't go unless she was vaccinated, and she refused to get vaccinated, so thus she wouldn't go. So it wasn't really a you're not invited, it was like an ultimatum of get vaccinated or you can't come. But I can't find any evidence of that anywhere. I've seen a couple people mention it, but I've not ever seen them reference where it was said and where they found that information. So it wouldn't surprise me, but I can't say that that's what happened. But it is a theory. Regardless, we don't get any further information about it. I kept waiting to get more information, and she quite literally just like, she never gives any more information than that. And despite the fact that daughter started this conversation by saying, you know, I love you and I want to be there for you and I don't want to hurt you, and effectively like begging her mother to understand, and effectively being like, please don't be mad at me. Please know I love you. Please know I'm not doing this out of a place of saying I don't want you in my life. She is begging her mother to not get mad, to not walk away. And so what happens? Doormat mom decided that despite the effective begging and saying how much she is loved, she decided that it meant that she was not loved. Her daughter did not want anything to do with her and did not want her in her life at all. So she's gonna give her what she wants and just walk away and move out of her life, just like what her daughter actually wanted from her in the first place. If she's not gonna be able to see her on her wedding day, she just won't see her on any day. It's so frustrating because like I feel so much for daughter in this situation, because you can hear the desperation in the conversation, especially like we didn't even get the full conversation. We didn't even get the context. We didn't even get all of it. And yet I can still feel the pain that she must have felt when her mother texted her the next day being like, I'll just walk away. I just won't be in your life anymore. Like that cut me. And it just shows that like doormat mom has like no intention of communicating or ever accepting any fault or ever listening to anything anyone says ever, because everything has to go her way or it's a personal attack. Shortly after this happened, daughter needed some help with some legal stuff for the marriage. And by that I mean all she needed was for her mother to sign a couple of pieces of paper, and it would make her life significantly easier. She could go forwards without her mother's signature, but it would be so much easier if her mom signed this legal stuff for her. But obviously she wasn't having that. You know what her response to being asked this incredibly easy favor that would drastically benefit daughter and make her life easier? She said, I refuse to respond out of self-respect, as well as the desire to give my daughter exactly what she had been asking for all along. I did so without concern for where our relationship would end up, nor if I would ever see her again. It's just so astounding to me, because like she sits here and she claims too that estrangement goes against her nature. It is the hardest thing in the world for her. It is so against a mother's nature to not speak to her daughter. And she's like suffering and struggling, and she still loves her daughter so much, but she's giving her what she wants. And she's just like not worth the effort anymore. The effort of signing a piece of paper. She's just like it's not worth it anymore. And I'm like, you made this decision. Firstly, you can't be like, I'm giving her exactly what she wants. She did not express that that's what she wants. She actually expressed the opposite. You literally quoted her from the same conversation, the exact same conversation you had, where you were claiming she never wants to see you ever again and wants nothing to do with you. From that exact same conversation where she said, I love you, I want to be there for you more, please, I love you, I love you, I love you. You took away from that, she wants nothing to do with you. That sounds like a you problem, man. She didn't fucking do anything. You are just doing this to punish her. That is not what she said. That is not what she feels. And you actually have no proof on the contrary. You only have evidence that she was begging you to stay in her life and to not walk away. And yet, here you are, claiming you're giving her what she wants, and then also claiming you love her, whilst refusing to do a very simple task for her. You cannot claim to like love your daughter unconditionally if you are then punishing her for just setting a boundary. You are deliberately making her life more difficult just to be petty. So I don't believe you do love her unconditionally. I don't believe you love her really at all. Not in the way that you are supposed to anyway. Maybe you think she wouldn't do it for me, and maybe that's true. Maybe she wouldn't do it for you. But also, that doesn't fucking matter. That doesn't matter. You don't just do things because you think they'll do things for you. You are her mother. You do things for her because you love her. Not because you're like, well, she wouldn't do it for me. It doesn't fucking matter if she wouldn't do it for you. You should do it for her because you love her and you don't want her life to be hard. This is all we get told about the estrangement. Like I said, we don't get any more information. I kept waiting for her to give us more information. I kept waiting for her to circle back to this and tell us more. And she never did. She never gives us any more information about this at all. There are so many pieces missing. There is so much information that we need to be able to actually like understand what went down. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she really does think that this is the whole thing because she did not even give her daughter a chance to explain. Like, if she just had an adult conversation with her daughter, that would be great. Really helpful for everyone. But unfortunately, she is far too busy playing the victim that she did not tell us. Whether that be because she knows it would make her look bad or because she genuinely didn't care to ask, I don't know. But both are bad. She does just show a lack of willingness to communicate or to listen to anyone at all because she truly just doesn't think anyone else's emotions or experiences are valid. And that is shown very, very well through how she talks about trauma and accountability. And lucky for us, she has chapters upon chapters upon chapters where she repeats the same bullshit over and over about such topics.
And a grateful little bastard.
For this next section, we are going to dive into Doormat Mom's views on trauma and how children, including the adult ones, don't know what trauma is. And they certainly don't know what abuse is. So she's about to educate us on what trauma and abuse really is and why we don't know what we're fucking talking about. The word abusive is no longer safe to describe extreme acts that would make all parents cry in outrage. Nope. Abusive is very loosely used within society today. It has evolved to include anything that assigns expectation onto adult children or denies them the ability to skirt responsibility for their own actions. Let's face it, not every parent is a good parent objectively. I'm sure we've all seen examples of this, and we shudder when we do. Where legitimate abuse and neglect are involved, you can't call yourself a good parent. The hypocrisy will speak for itself. To ignore the existence of quiet emotional abuse and manipulation and imply that the only abuse worth noting is physical is to also ignore the fact that all abuse, physical included, is emotional. And what I mean by this, right, is that if you punch someone one time, they are going to walk away. They're going to be like, what the fuck? Why did you just punch me? And then they'll leave. Unless you have conditioned them to believe that they deserve to be punched. And then they will stay, and then they will allow you to keep punching them, right? People who are victims of physical abuse and stay in physically abusive situations, it is because they have been made to believe that they deserve that. Someone has control and power over them, and it has left them powerless and unable to walk away. That is a result of emotional abuse. And just because you aren't experiencing physical abuse does not make it any less harmful. And on the topic of neglect, neglecting emotional needs is also neglect. Right? You can feed them, house them, clothe them, provide for them, whatever, and meet all of those physical needs. But you still have to care for their emotional needs as well. And if you are neglecting their emotional needs, that is still neglect. Just because they aren't starving to death doesn't mean they haven't been neglected. Emotional needs are, in fact, incredibly important. And that's not like a bonus thing that you do as a parent. That is a requirement of you. As a parent, you have to meet all of their needs, physical and emotional. That all has to be met. And if it isn't, you are being neglectful. That's just a state of fact. Feeding and housing them, but also telling them to just get over it when they are struggling emotionally, or telling them that, you know, someone else has it worse. That's still neglect. Giving emotional support is not asking for too much. It's not giving anything extra. It is just being a parent. And if you are saying that it is extra, that they have to give you more gratitude in return for that, then you are further contributing to harm. You are being manipulative. If you are saying or acting as though they have to earn love, that love and like affection and emotional support is a reward and not just something that you give them, you are being manipulative. And it is so hypocritical that parents expect so much gratitude and love and praise for just being parents, and yet they do not give that love and gratitude and praise to their kids for just being kids. So many kids will accept this manipulation and neglect and abuse, etc. for so long, and sometimes even their entire lives, because all they want is for their parent to love them in the way that they like need to be loved, and the way that they are so desperate to be loved by their parent. Sometimes they reach a point where they walk away, they realize that they're not going to get it, and so they leave. And sometimes they don't, unfortunately. Sometimes in situations such as like this one, parents weaponize the love that they know their children crave. They weaponize the love that they have constantly used, like held above their kids' heads and wagged it, being like, if you perform this for me, I'll give you this love that you want. And they weaponize it, such as here, where her daughter set a boundary, and so she took the love away, knowing that it would hurt, knowing that it would cut her, and it would be a punishment. And it teaches them that, you know, the only way to get the love that they crave is to not have any boundaries and to let their parents do whatever they want. Because they are being told that as soon as they enforce boundaries, as soon as they say no, the love is taken away. And so these parents are just raising these kids to be able to have full control over them at all times. And if they stand up for themselves, sorry, I don't love you anymore. And it's your fault. And I am the victim. And it works. And it's so fucked. It's so fucked. And then they sit here and write an entire book about how they're the victim. This next statement is honestly one of the most absurd, outlandish things I've ever heard, and I'm so baffled by everything that she says here. So let's go. Good parents are forced to endure vicious comments such as, you done fucked up if your kid wants nothing to do with you. Or, adult kids are more capable of identifying abuse today as they are better educated to the signs. Really? So ready are others to cast stones at glass houses, and yet, just taking those two remarks into account, the hypocrisy is stunning. In the first case, adult children are deemed so bad off that they must remove themselves from their parents' lives. At the same time, they have the immense soundness of mind and educational acumen to be able to identify the situation around them better than their own parents and call it abuse. Sorry. Saying that if your kid has any sort of comprehension skills, you can't be abusive because obviously you did a good job raising them makes no fucking sense at all. Like, in the slight, what are you even saying here? That a kid can't say they're abused unless their parent is actively saying to them, I am abusing you? What an absurd thing to say. Abuse victims are very often still going to be educated. Abuse victims oftentimes even know that they're being abused. They just can't get out for some reason or another. Or they might not be aware that they're being abused until they leave the situation and then reflect back on it and go, oh, that was abuse. And that is also very valid. If the only person who can claim a relationship is abusive is an abuser, see, this is the thing though. This is why she's saying it, because she's being accused of being an abuser and she didn't tell her kids they were being abused. So therefore it means she cannot be an abuser. Her kids went to school. So What do they know? Her kids went to school and they had food to eat and they had a house, so therefore she was not abusive. And the fact that they say she is means that she wasn't, because what do they fucking know? She didn't tell them she was. So, yeah, you know, good time here to point out the fact that a lot of abusers don't know that they are being abusers. Or, you know, they do know but refuse to acknowledge the fact, because then they have to admit that what they're doing is hurting the people they supposedly love. And they don't want to live with the guilt of that. So when someone expresses that, you know, they are abusing them or that they are being hurt by them, instead they turn it around and come up with a whole bunch of reasons as to why it's not true and as to why they are not the bad guy here, and instead play the victim and act as though they are the one who has been traumatized and that the person accusing them is making shit up and is just being manipulative and they are the real abuser. And Doormat Mom, you would know a lot about this, I feel. I feel you'd actually probably know a whole book worth of things about the idea of an abuser refusing to acknowledge their own abuser and instead playing the victim.
And a grateful little bastard.
Outside of her completely mind-numbing and infuriating takes on abuse, she also has a lot to say about trauma and what she calls designer trauma, which is possibly the single most frustrating thing in this entire book. If I am being honest with you, every time I read this, I literally sit here and want to slam my head into a wall and like scream, because I just like cannot believe that this is a real thing that she wrote. There's just one paragraph and I need to chop it up, and I'm gonna go through this paragraph bit by bit with you, and we can all sit here in horror about what the fuck she is saying. So Let's jump into this one. Okay. Adult children seem to think that they have a moratorium on trauma, as if no one else truly experiences it. They expect their parents' resolve to be unwavering, while they fold like wet noodles at the hint of the designer trauma many of them mistake for real trauma. Parents absolutely can have trauma. Obviously, parents can have trauma. However, they do have to hold it together. I'm sorry, but they do. You cannot make your trauma and your struggles the problem of your children. You just can't do that. As a parent, you cannot do that. You acting out because of your trauma, you like taking out your emotions on your children because of your trauma and what you are experiencing is what creates trauma. This whole point of this section is her being like, kids don't know what trauma is, adults do. They claim that your trauma traumatizes them, and that's not okay. Your trauma does traumatize them. The way you act with your trauma traumatizes them. If you are going through a hard time and you take that out on your children, yes, you are going through a hard time. Yes, you may have been experiencing trauma. I'm so sorry. But now you are also traumatizing your children. Both of those things can be true. You can be traumatized and also be a traumatizer. Your struggles can be real, and you can also be using them to hurt others. Both of those things can be true. Them having trauma does not cancel yours out. That's no one's saying you aren't allowed trauma. We can and are saying that it is not okay for you to cause trauma because of your trauma. You do have to hold it together. It is hard, I know, and I'm sorry, but you have to do it anyway. You're talking about children. They are not equipped to deal with trauma. They are new to this world. They are still learning how it works. You are at least much better equipped to deal with traumatic things than your children are. It is your job to protect them. It is your job to help them through difficult things. It is not your job to take your emotions out on them, because that is not fair. They are not equipped to deal with these things. They are not prepared to overcome these big things. It is your job to help them through it, and you need to find somewhere else and a different outlet for your emotions and your struggles. Get a therapist. Do something. Take your emotions somewhere else. You have to put them to one side and help your children with theirs. Your child is never responsible for the weight of your emotions. When they are adults, they can be there for you. You know, like you can share that with them and you can have these conversations in this relationship, and that is okay to have that relationship when they are older. But it is not a requirement of them. If they do not want to be the bearer of your emotional weight, that is not a job of theirs. However, it is a job of yours. Parent-child relationships are not like you have equal roles and responsibility. You are the parent. You have a lot of responsibility. They do not. That's just what you signed up for. Not to mention, saying they fold like a wet noodle about a child is such an incredibly fucked up thing to say. Like, that's a child. That's a fucking child. You are creating trauma, and I can tell you that right now without any further information. You just say that sentence, just that one sentence alone, and I already know you are the bad guy. You are creating trauma. I don't even need the rest of the book to tell me that. That one sentence says that in itself. If your trauma on a bad day is another person's greatest wish on a good one, that's not trauma, that's good fortune. This is not the Trauma Olympics. We all experience things differently. We are all impacted by things in different ways because we are all different people. Some things might really upset you that I would be totally fine with, and vice versa. Like, everything is going to hit people in a different way, and all of that is valid. All of it is valid. If your child is expressing pain and hurt and you dismiss it because you don't understand or because you have it worse, congratulations, you're creating trauma. Like, the whole concept of people being like, oh, well, sorry, small child, you're going through this. That's so small in comparison to what I, a fully grown adult, am going through. You cannot compare. You cannot compare what a child is going through versus what you are going through. Because for a child, things are much, much bigger. You look at like high school kids. So many teenagers are so like depressed and like end their lives because their entire world is so small. They only have the context of the life that they have lived so far. Their lives are school, and it can seem so hopeless outside of that because it is the only thing they know. So many adults are like, oh, it's so small, it doesn't matter. It is their entire world. It doesn't matter that it wouldn't be upsetting to you. You're an adult. You have so much more context and so much more life. And like, yes, high school affairs wouldn't affect you now because you're not in fucking high school. Watching like TV and things of people in high school who are like struggling with different shit, I watch it and like at the time I was like, oh my God, that's like life ending. Oh my God, that's horrible. And like really, really feeling that. And like watching it now, I like see the same shit and I'm like, that was so horrible at the time, but I'm like I know now that like life is so much more than that, right? Like you always hear adults say that to kids being like, life is more than high school. But at that time, you don't know that. It's impossible for you to think outside that because it is your whole life, right? You cannot compare your experiences as an adult to that of a child, no matter like how old that child is. You just cannot do that. You can't because it's not the same. Not to mention, someone is always going to have it worse. Being like, your trauma on a bad day is another person's greatest wish. That's not trauma. That's good fortune. Your fucking trauma is someone else's best day. Why is it okay for you to call it trauma? Your trauma is real. So is your child's. So is theirs. It's all fucking real. Shut up. Anyways, I'm not even finished with this one fucking paragraph. Real trauma is something no one would wish for another person any day. That's real trauma. And most good parents inevitably have to deal with some form of it while raising kids. The sudden death of a family member, a contentious divorce, a devastating diagnosis, lost employment when you were just making ends meet, a natural disaster that demolishes the home, or one that burns it to the ground. All of these incidents impose real trauma on people, especially parents whose entire juggle can be thrown under the pressure of lesser calamities. Literally every single one of these things is also traumatic for your child. What the fuck are you talking about? Being like, kids don't know trauma. My husband died. That was traumatic. Their father died. But no, yeah, that's not trauma. You're the only one who suffered from that experience. A family member got a terminal illness. They got really sick. That's trauma. I experienced that trauma. That is also your child's family member. They are also experiencing that, right? They are also going through a family member having a life-threatening illness. And they do not understand what that means. You do. You understand what that means, and you have to guide them through that and help them understand that. Saying that, like, losing a house to a natural disaster or having it burn down to the ground, that's real trauma that parents experience. Children know nothing of that. They lost their fucking house, and everything they own. What the fuck do you mean that kids don't understand real trauma because their house didn't burn down? Their house also fucking burnt down. And they have no, understanding of what that means. They're children. And you're there being like, my life is so hard because my house burned down, so you need to leave me the fuck alone because now I've been traumatized. They're traumatized too. And you neglecting to help them during that, or by saying that their issues are not as big as yours because you've just experienced the disaster, you are fucking everything up. And you are damaging your children so much. Yes, it is hard for you. I'm so sorry that this is happening. And obviously now you have a lot of responsibility. You have to go try to find a new place to live. You have to do all of this. That is going to be stressful. Absolutely. Your kids are not doing that. They don't have to worry about finding a new place to live or anything like that. That does not mean the trauma is worse for you because they are left feeling helpless. They don't know what is going on. They are feeling uncertain for the first time in their lives. This is a huge, huge thing. And they need the support of a parent. And yes, that is hard for you. And I'm fucking sorry. I truly am so fucking sorry if this is something that happened. And I can imagine it would be very hard. You need a support person. You need a support network. You need someone to help you through that. But you cannot take that out on your children. You cannot make this their problem because they just lost their fucking house. They lost their father. They lost a family member. They are being traumatized and they are not equipped to deal with that. Even when they are older, even when they are teenagers, because obviously a lot more grace is given to small children, as it should be. They do deserve a lot of grace. They're small children. So much weight is put on teenagers. In so many of these situations, teenagers are expected to step up. You hear it all the time as a casual thing of you're the man of the house now to a 14-year-old fucking kid. No, it is not their responsibility to fix a traumatic situation. They need support through these times too. Teenagers and older kids, they need support because they are still learning as well. Their world is still so small and they are still learning and growing and they need that support and they need to not just be left out to their own devices. That is how kids end up in horrible situations. It's how they end up just looking for support and filling this missing space in their lives with other things that might be damaging because they are not getting the support that they require from their home life. You have to be there for them. And saying that your trauma is not their trauma is so unbelievably cruel. And also it's really funny to me how Doormat Mom here could not come up with any examples of trauma that do not also impact her kids. Saying that parent trauma is real and kid trauma is not, when the only example she could think of were things that would also traumatize her kids, says so much. And you're parents aren't allowed to experience trauma. Apparently, kids aren't allowed to experience trauma. Apparently, all of the traumatic things that happen do not affect children. They only affect parents. That's the only person who is impacted is the parent, and the kids don't experience that. They don't know what trauma is. They can't ever feel it. They can't ever express it. That's a right reserved for parents. It's just so unbelievably fucking frustrating. And this isn't even all of it. This was literally just one paragraph, and she wrote chapters about trauma. She wrote chapters of it. And I talked about this one paragraph for a fucking long time. So I'm going to break away from this one paragraph for a minute because there are still a couple more things that she said that I do really want to talk about this topic. So we're going to move on to the next thing that she said, which was, sometimes adult child trauma is real trauma and really the fault of good parents. Being a good parent doesn't mean never having a bad moment. It means accepting when you do and answering for it to your adult child, comprehending her perception of the experience and apologizing. Yeah, I mean, correct. So true. Unfortunately, you have said absolutely nothing about this in any other part of your book. I'm very confused about this statement. I'm so confused about this statement because you've spent this entire book saying that this is not something that you do. You have not a single time, not once, anywhere across any of your social media platforms, interviews, this book, anywhere, have you ever once said that you have listened to your daughter. You have never once said that you have apologized or taken on board anything that she said or communicated or respected a fucking boundary. You've not once provided an example of that. Not once. So I'm confused. I'm confused. If a good parent can be at fault and they just have to like communicate and like understand and apologize, why don't you fucking do that? I would absolutely love for you to provide me with just one example of one time that you have respected your daughter's wishes, that you have listened to her when she asked you for an apology, that you have like internalized what she has said when she has said you have upset her. I would love for you to share literally just one time that has happened, because you've not provided a single example of that. The only thing you've provided us examples with is how you believe that you are superior and you are the only one entitled to emotions and feelings, and that your daughter owes you eternal gratitude. You've given like no show of literally anything else. And I'm not talking about your daughter expressing upset and you just walking away because you don't want to pick a fight and you just think she's being ridiculous and she's overreacting. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like a genuine moment where you genuinely took what she said on board, internalized that, apologized, and grew from it. Because all you have shown this entire book and across all of your social media platforms is you avoiding accountability like it's the fucking plague and blaming literally everything on society and on children being ungrateful. And instead of taking accountability or reflecting on your actions or anything at all, you create scenarios to use to fuel your agenda, such as this following scenario that she absolutely just completely made up and pulled out of her ass. There is a big difference between your adult child blaming you for her continued drug usage because you were 10 minutes late from retrieving her from a party at 16 years old, and her blaming you for refusing to get her help at that same age after she became the victim of a violent crime that she told you about and you did nothing but blame her. These two examples are so wildly different, and you fucking know that without providing any context that it seems so outlandish, and so thus no further context was provided. Because I would love for you to find me an instance of someone blaming one single instance of being picked up late from a party as the reason that they are now a drug addict, because you will not find one. You will not find a person who has had one negative experience and becoming a drug addict, because that's not something that fucking happens. You are not going to provide any further context, because once you provide the context, it's very obvious that that's not the case, and it is actually like valid, and it makes a lot of sense that this is where we ended up. So let's have a little bit of a discussion about how picking up your daughter late from a birthday party when she was 16 could later in life lead to a drug addiction. All right, we got to start with asking a few questions, like establishing why you were late to picking her up from the birthday party. Were you prioritizing a sibling? If you were, how often did you prioritize a sibling? Did you forget to pick up your child? Do you often forget to pick up your child? Is this like one of a list of many times where this child has been forgotten? Were they a low priority in general, whether to a sibling or whether to your own plans or anything else? Were there times where they had an event, but instead you chose to go to a sibling's event, or they asked you to make time for something that was important to them and you promised that you would, and then you forgot and you did something else instead? How many instances were there where they were forgotten or they weren't prioritized, where they actively saw your love and affection and attention going somewhere else and not them? How often did they have to like work to feel like they could get your attention and feel seen and loved by you? Because if it is specifically being picked up late from a birthday party that they are using as an example for now, you know, being estranged or being a drug addict or whatever, it is absolutely because that was just the last straw. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was because you had spent such a long time neglecting them or having them as a low priority, and this is just the one time that they were kind of like, okay, that's it. I'm never going to get what I need from her. This is not ever going to be something that I can get. I'm never going to be a priority. And so that's the instance that they turn to and use as an example, because it is the one that hurt the most, because it was the final fucking straw. And there's also on top of that the questions that come along with it of like, when you were late picking them up or when you forgot them or whatever, how often did you apologize versus how often did you say, well, it could have been worse. Your friend's mom makes them walk home. Well, you know, I feed you, so really you should be grateful that I'm here at all. Because I hear so many parents do that. It's like their kid expresses being like, you're always late to pick me up, and it's upsetting and it makes me feel like you don't care about me. And that's a very valid thing to express. And then their parents will turn around and be like, well, there are kids starving in Africa. There are kids who are beaten by their parents. So you should be grateful that I'm here. Like, some kids don't even have the luxury of their parents picking them up at all. So you should be grateful that I picked you up, because most kids don't have that. That is a surprisingly and upsettingly common thing for parents to say. And she does not say that this is something that she said, but considering so much of this book is her being like, I'm a good parent, you're lucky you didn't have a bad one, I don't think it's a far leap to make that is the type of thing that she would say, and the sort of like guilt tripping that she would give her daughter to keep her like there and like make her feel like she had to be grateful for her mother just, you know, being there. And it's like, these things, obviously, when you look at all of that together, it makes sense for them to end up in a situation where maybe they do turn to drugs, because there is like a hole in their life of this like attention and this love that they needed from their mother, and you didn't give them. And not only did you not give it to them, but you were like gaslighting them their entire lives, telling them that they were. They say like, I felt forgotten, I felt neglected, I felt abandoned, you always prioritize someone else, and you just tell them over and over, no, I didn't, you're making it up, get over it. That's a lot of things to deal with. They are dealing with this like lie that they're being told, like the confliction between what they're feeling versus what they're being told. And that can lead to the breakdown of a relationship, not only the relationship between you and your child, but also the breakdown of so many other relationships within their life. It impacts their relationship with themselves. It impacts the trust that they have with other people, the anxiety they have within relationships. It can give them abandonment issues. It has so many ramifications. If you are continuously late for picking your child up over and over and over again and telling them to get over it, that's gonna fuck them up. I'm sorry, it seems like a small thing to you, but it's not a small thing. Once again, your child's life is limited to what they know, right? Like a 16-year-old's life is not as big as like an adult's life. This means so much more to them than it might mean to you. And the fact that you refuse to understand and acknowledge that is also adding to the fucking problem. So we have established that children are incapable of experiencing trauma or deciding that they are being hurt or abused, and that they have no right to be upset or to advocate for themselves or to set boundaries and say no to a parent. Because if they do any of those things, then it means they are, and here I quote her famous line, ungrateful little bastards.
And a grateful little bastard.
Which is what we will be diving into in next week's episode, including the subcategories of I did the bare minimum, so now they owe me. Love has to feel worthwhile. Love is transactional. Society is to blame. And the use of religion to justify her behavior. So if you don't want to miss all of that really super fun, great stuff to dive into, then please do subscribe if you aren't already, and hit the little notification bell. As I said, even if you are already subscribed, my videos often are not showing up in people's feeds, so do click the notification bell so you do not miss it. A huge, huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons: Rain Remaining, Mossy Moose, Noah, Bingo Bango Who Ate My Mango, Kiaram, Bug Loves Cats, Kaylee, Kojo, The Beebs, Tess, Alicia, Bree, Chastity, Beckett, Prismatic PT, Sushi, Kawaii, Phil the Duck, River, Queen Glimmer, Ella, Mr. Noodle, Radsack, Knitting Menace, Chris, Ellie, Ikazel, and Alexis. I love and appreciate you so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah.